Hey Wargamers, Leland coming to you with another video here. Just going to quickly talk about the newly leaked beta rule for Bolter Discipline and is it enough for Space Marines to become relevant? So as a lot of people have seen, and I'm showcasing it right here, we have a new rule for Adeptus Astartes units and Heretic Astartes units, and that is the Bolter Discipline. Basically, what this is doing for you is if you have a rapid-firing bolter, it is now more than just half range to activate it. So obviously you'll get the rapid fire in half range, but you'll also be able to get it if you happen to remain stationary during the movement phase, or if you happen to have one of the keywords such as Terminator, Vehicle, Bike, or Centurion. So this is actually kind of a neat change. It's not quite what everyone was hoping for, because it seems like a lot of people, myself included, were really hoping for a bolter to get a -1 AP to it, just to make sure it eats through armor a little bit better. This is not quite the same, but it's still nothing to scoff at. The fact that it's effectively increased the threat range of your standard Marine with a rapid fire weapon or a storm bolter is kind of a big deal, because it now means that your Marines can sit down, they can hold an objective, and they can still threaten things down to 24 inches with a rather decent amount of firepower. Even better if you happen to have storm bolters or another rapid firing bolt type weapon, which we will get to later in this video. But it's really neat because it's coming without an adjustment of the prices or anything like that. So really, what does this mean for all Space Marines? Well, basically, you're going to be able to put out a lot more shots. You're going to be making your opponent roll a lot more dice to make saves, and hopefully, you're going to be removing a lot more enemy models from the table. So all that sounds really good. Now, there are some units that are winning a little bit more with this than not. Right off the bat, things like Hurricane Bolters on vehicle platforms and Centurions are big winners on this one, simply because they are now getting their full shots from the full 24 inches out. That is massive for things like the Landler Crusader, the Storm Raven, Centurions. Basically, it means that they don't need to be right up in your face to really be putting on the anti-infantry weapons, or alternatively, it does mean that they can now put those weapons into different targets, regardless of where they are, as long as they're within the 24 inches. So basically, you now have a lot more options. You're no longer choosing to fire at the closest target simply because that's what's going to give you the rapid fire range. You can now get really close to, say, an enemy tank, use your melta weapons on the Landler Crusader or the Storm Raven, to get that extra damage with the melta, or at least that extra d6 with the melta to choose which is the better damage roll. But you can then use your anti-infantry weapon basically at a target that's a better target for it at anti-infantry. The same is actually true for Terminators in this case as well, because a standard Terminator power fist with a Storm Bolter, you're now in a position where if you deep strike them in, or you take them out of a transport within 12 inches of an enemy unit, you're not locked into necessarily firing at that unit. So a good case in point, you deep strike the Terminators in, they're just outside of 9 inches. Well, you're going to fire at the unit that they're about to try and charge, simply because they're the closest. You're going to get the rapid fire, so you're going to get the extra shots. So those 5 Terminators, they're unloading 20 shots into that unit. Now, basically, because you have that 24-inch range, you can deep strike them in, still intend to charge that unit, because the wonders of 8th edition, you don't have to charge what you shot at. But you can now use that 24-inch threat range, rapid fire threat range, to look at another unit. You can actually use them to support another unit across the table, and still try to get that charge in to basically keep the unit you're intending to fight in close combat occupied, which offers a whole bunch of tactical flexibility to the unit of Terminators. Whether or not they're still worth the points, or whether or not they're too expensive or durable enough, I mean, that's a whole other question. I mean, anyone who knows me knows I've been advocating for the idea of Terminator armor improving your toughness as well and granting an additional wound, but that's a matter for another video. But basically, you now have options to use these units. They're getting a second lease on life, as it were. Some armies obviously are going to benefit from this a lot more. My own preferred army, the Grey Knights, obviously they're going to get a big boon out of this. The power armor strike squad units not so much, because you got to keep them moving. You don't really do a gun line with Grey Knights, so having the ability to get that 24-inch rapid fire range, while it's cool, not a big deal with the power armor Marines. But using things like the Terminators and the Paladins, this is actually really big. Because Grey Knights, when they get into melee combat, they can do a lot of damage just by the virtue that they have, high damage melee weapons. They can eat through the armor saves quite a bit. And they're great for that. So what it means is, you bring the unit of Grey Knight Terminators down, which frankly are still overcosted. This makes them a little bit more palatable for Grey Knights, or the Paladins. They come down, they unload their storm bolters into a unit up to 24 inches away, so maybe something that's about to assault a key location, or someone that's been putting a lot of pressure on your own units quite a bit, but then they can run in and charge and assault the unit that they're closest to, and either lock them in combat, or if you're lucky, do a lot of damage to them, to the point where the return fighting is going to be weak to non-existent. So it just gives you that nice option. And as I mentioned earlier, the Landler Crusader, I think, is going to be one of the biggest winners of this one, because of the Hurricane Bolter, or the change to rapid fires. Their Hurricane Bolter now makes this much more of a gun platform than it was before. Again, not perfect, still a very expensive platform to run this on, but it's a new lease on life. Whether or not we're going to be seeing it heavily in competitive scenes, that remains to be seen. I wouldn't put too much money in that one, but for your local metas, for your fun casual games, it gives you a reason to actually take the Land Raider, even with its ridiculous cost, just because you can now put out a valuable amount of shots going into things. So basically, to sum things up, is the Bolter discipline rule for Space Marines, for Adeptus Astartes, Heretic Astartes, is this really going to be winning you games? I mean, it's essentially just giving you a little bit more of an edge to Bolter spam. It pairs well with a couple armies. It pairs very well with a couple stratagems. Any stratagem that allows you to basically fire off another salvo of shots, or modify the strength and AP, such as like the Cybolt stratagem for Grey Knights, it pairs very well with those. But like I said, it's not something that you're probably going to want to build your force around. It's a nice little extra thing to it. It's a nice little gesture that Games Workshop is giving to the Space Marine community. Even though I know there's going to be lots of cries that the Space Marines always get everything. It's kind of undeniable that the Space Marines are in a weird position right now, suffering from an early codex, and they're not really as tough as they should be, as competitive as they should be. So this is a nice little touch, just to give them a little bit more of an edge. So there you go. That is my quick thoughts on this. As always, just keep in mind that this is coming from somebody who is not the most hyper-competitive. So obviously, you can get more tactical, in-depth opinions from other sources. This is just the general ideas, thoughts, and opinions of a guy who likes to play the game, has played the game a lot, and is always interested in seeing how the game evolves and stays healthy. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video, definitely leave some comments below. I'd love to hear your take on Bolter Discipline. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think it's good, bad, whatever. All comments are always great. Always let me know if there's anything else I can improve on. And thank you so much for watching the video, for subscribing, and just generally being great members of this hobby community. And as always, Happy wargaming.